All right, strap yourselves in, because this deep dive is taking us into District B13.
That 2004 French action film.
You got it. Our sources for this one are a podcast review from Spoilers.
And some background info on the actors.
Yeah, a pretty dynamic duo, I'd say. We're talking a walled-off ghetto in Paris. The year is 2010.
Ticking time bomb.
Oh, and of course, we've got our heroes with, let's just say, very different ways of handling things.
So, a lot to unpack here. I'm excited.
Me too. And the podcasters actually do a pretty good job of setting the scene.
Definitely.
We're in this lawless zone, completely cut off from the rest of Paris by these massive walls.
Called District B13.
Right. And running the show is Taha.
This brutal drug lord who's not afraid to
Motivate his people.
Let's just say he's got a very direct management style.
The podcasters called it speaking through actions, which in Taha's case involves a lot of, well,
impromptu executions.
Yeah, it's definitely over the top, but I guess that's the world our heroes are dealing with.
Definitely sets the tone.
And speaking of our heroes, we've got Leto,
Played by David Belle.
who's like the parkour king.
Seriously, the way he moves to the district, it's like watching poetry in motion.
Walls, buildings, rooftops, nothing can stop him.
And then you've got Damien, the undercover cop, sent in to defuse the bomb.
Mr. By the Book.
Exactly. Strategy, planning, following the rules. That's his style.
It's funny, the podcasters kept saying Leto and Damien look like Chris Martin and Ted Mosby.
I can kind of see it.
Do you think the filmmakers did that on purpose? Like, casting actors with those familiar faces?
That's an interesting thought. Maybe a way to connect with a wider audience.
Subconsciously, maybe?
Possibly. But either way, it's a fun little detail.
Definitely. Oh, and speaking of fun details, did you know that David Belle, who plays Leto,
Is like a real-life parkour legend.
yeah, the guy practically invented the sport,
I mean, it's not just acting. He's showcasing real skills.
which makes those action scenes so much more intense.
Oh, absolutely. You can feel the authenticity.
For anyone who doesn't know, parkour is basically about overcoming obstacles using movement,
Creativity, adaptability, it's all about working with your environment.
which is exactly what Leto does in the film. He turns the whole district into his playground.
The walls, the rooftops, it's like an extension of his own body.
It really is. And then you have Cyril Raffaelli, who plays Damien,
Another expert in his own right.
a renowned stuntman and fight choreographer.
Yeah, that definitely adds another layer of realism to the action.
You can tell these aren't just actors going through the motions.
They know what they're doing. It shows in every punch, every kick.
It really does. And then, of course, there's the American remake, Brick Mansions.
With Paul Walker, may he rest in peace. And RZA.
Interesting casting choices.
It makes you wonder, can an American remake really capture the essence of the original?
It's tough. There's always the risk of losing something in translation.
Culturally, stylistically, it's a delicate balance.
For sure. But let's get back to the original District B13. The podcasters pointed out some of the deeper themes,
Oh yeah, this film has layers.
especially the political undertones. Like the contrast between Damien, who still believes in the system.
And Leto, who's seen how the system has failed his community.
It's a powerful dynamic, especially in the context of this walled-off ghetto.
Abandoned by the authorities.
Right. And even in this environment where survival is key, Leto still has his own code.
Like refusing to let drug dealers operate near his apartment.
It's like the film is saying, even in chaos, individuals can still choose to live by certain principles.
It adds complexity.
Yeah.
These characters aren't just one-dimensional action heroes.
They have depth. And the podcasters were surprised by how much they enjoyed the film.
They said they went in expecting just another action flick.
But they were blown away by the parkour, the social commentary, the dark humor.
It's a unique blend.
They even said they were disappointed that certain characters, like K2,
One of Taha's lieutenants.
didn't get more development. They felt he had potential.
I get that. Sometimes those morally ambiguous characters are the most intriguing.
Totally agree. But you know what else was intriguing? Leto's escape from K2 and his gang.
That opening scene.
Yeah, he jumps out a window, grabs a rope, slides down the side of a building.
That's insane.
And it's all real, no CGI.
Just pure athleticism.
It sets the stage for the whole film.
You see Leto's ingenuity, his strength, his knowledge of the district, all in those first few minutes.
Perfectly said.
Yeah.
But to understand why he's even in that situation.
We need to rewind a bit.
Right, because he does something pretty bold early on.
Destroys a stash of drugs.
Flushes it down the drain. Heroin, gone.
Talk about making a statement.
It's like a declaration of war on Taha.
Yeah, he's not messing around.
Yeah.
And there's already this ticking clock in that scene,
He's racing against time to get rid of the drugs before K2 shows up.
which sets up that recurring theme of urgency. Every second counts in this world.
Exactly. So we have Leto making his escape, showing us what he's capable of.
And then we're introduced to Taha.
Menacing?
That's one word for it. The podcasters mentioned that scene where he shoots his own men just to get them brainstorming ideas.
It's brutal.
And they also pointed out this weird detail about him constantly snorting something,
They think it's heroin.
which, if you think about it, says a lot about the state of District B13.
Like, even the drugs reflect the harsh reality of their environment.
It's a good point. So Leto escapes, gets to the police station,
Offering for some help.
but as we quickly learn, the police want nothing to do with District B13.
They're terrified of it.
And this is where we see that clash between Leto's view of the world and Damien's.
Damien still has faith in the system.
While Leto has lost all faith.
He's seen firsthand how the system has failed his people.
It creates a fascinating tension between them.
They both want justice.
But they have very different ideas about how to get it.
And then, just when you think it can't get any crazier,
Taha kidnaps Lola.
Leto's sister.
The stakes just went through the roof.
It's a classic hostage situation, but with this added layer of urgency because of the bomb.
And Leto now has to choose between his own freedom and his sister's safety.
It's a perfect setup for the action and moral dilemmas that District B13 is known for.
Definitely a turning point in this story.
And a great place to pause for now.
Sounds good to me.
Back again for more District B13, and let me tell ya, things really start to heat up in this next part.
Yeah, the podcasters were definitely hooked at this point.
And you can really feel that ticking clock. Every scene just has this extra layer of intensity.
For sure. And then there's Damien's undercover mission.
Oh, yeah, that gets pretty wild.
The police cook up this whole elaborate plan to get him into the district.
Fake escape, stolen police van, the works.
Crashing right into Taha's territory, it's
A bit over the top.
just a tad. Though the podcasters did have some fun comparing it to the Fast and Furious movies.
Something about Tyrese Gibson's car.
Yeah, but I think their point was more about how ridiculous the whole setup was.
Oh, totally. But of course, Lael sees right through it.
He's not fooled for a second. Knows the cops wouldn't set foot in B13 unless it was something major.
He's got those street smarts.
Way sharper than Damien's by-the-book approach.
And their first meeting, it's like
Spark flying.
they're sizing each other up, trying to figure out who to trust.
The podcasters pointed out that scene where they end up handcuffed together,
Back to back.
almost like a metaphor for their opposing worldviews.
I love that, a physical representation of their differences.
But also maybe a hint that they're more alike than they realize.
Both wanting justice, just going about it in different ways.
Exactly. And that dynamic really gets tested when they have to escape K2 and his gang.
Talk about teamwork. They pull off this synchronized backflip over a railing.
Straight into a sewage pit.
Not the most glamorous escape route.
Definitely a hold your breath moment, according to the podcaster.
For sure. But they get out and they realize they need each other if they're going to save Lola and defuse that bomb.
It's a reluctant alliance, but a necessary one.
They each bring something unique to the table.
Leto's knowledge of the district.
Damien's police connections.
The good combo.
And of course, we get to see Leto's parkour skills on full display in that chase scene.
The way he's running from Taha's men, leaping across those rooftops.
Like something out of a video game.
The podcasters were just gushing about David Belle's movement in those scenes.
They were mesmerized.
As if gravity doesn't apply to him. There's this one shot where he literally runs up a wall.
I know, it's insane.
So while Leto's busy defying physics, Damien's digging for info about the bomb.
And that's when things take a dark turn.
He discovers the police are in cahoots with Taha.
It's a shocking revelation.
They're planning to let the bomb detonate, wipe out District B13.
It's chilling to think those in power could make a decision like that.
About countless lives.
Without a second thought.
Damien's whole world is shattered. He thought he was fighting for the good guys.
But now he sees how blurry the lines can get.
Definitely a crisis of faith for him.
So we have Damien dealing with that, Leto trying to save his sister, and the bomb ticking away.
Talk about a pressure cooker.
And then, as if things couldn't get any weirder,
They encounter the Yeti.
that's what the podcasters called him.
This massive, hulking figure guarding Taha's lair.
It's like they threw a mythical creature into this already chaotic situation.
But Damien, with his quick thinking and a well-placed cinder block,
Takes him down.
it's that classic David and Goliath moment, showing that brute force isn't always the answer.
Which brings us to the final showdown. Leto and Damien versus Taha and his crew.
The podcasters did not disappoint with their description of this scene.
Parkour, explosions, martial arts, it's got it all.
It's everything you'd expect from a climactic action sequence.
But there's this tragic twist.
We find Lola, but
Taha's men have turned her into a drug addict.
she's desperate, volatile, and talking about sacrificing herself.
It's heartbreaking, and it puts Leto in an impossible position.
His sister, or the entire district.
It's a moment that really elevates the film beyond just another action flick.
You see Leto's vulnerability, his love for his sister,
And all while this is happening, Damien's still working on the bomb.
trying to disarm it.
He figures out the passwords connected to Leto's past, a significant date.
It's a clever way to tie the bomb's fate to Leto's personal history.
For sure. But just when Damien thinks he's cracked the code,
Another twist.
he realizes the police rigged the bomb to explode anyway.
Even with the password.
Their cruelty is just...
Unbelievable.
Damien's hit with another moral dilemma,
He can't follow orders anymore. He has to do what he believes is right.
even if it means going against the system.
This is where his character arc really shines through.
He's come a long way from that by-the-book cop.
He's seen the corruption firsthand, and he's choosing to fight against it.
It's a powerful moment. And then, just as all hope seems lost,
Lola steps in.
she gives Damien the final piece of the code.
It's like a moment of redemption for her.
Even in her state, she's still trying to protect the people she loves.
And with that, Damien manages to disarm the bomb.
Literally seconds before it detonates.
Talk about a nail-biter,
It's a victory for Leto and Damien.
but a bittersweet one.
They saved District B13.
But they also expose this deep corruption.
That reaches the highest levels of government.
And Damien, especially, has been through the ringer.
His faith in the system is shattered.
But he's gained a new understanding of what justice really means.
But the fight's not over yet.
Not by a long shot.
Leto and Damien have one more card to play.
They're taking the fight to the government.
And they're not going quietly,
They're marching into Parliament.
bomb in hand.
They're going to expose everything.
And that's where we'll pick up in the final part of our deep dive. So here we are, final act of District B13. Leto and Damien are in Parliament, bomb in hand, ready to blow the lid off this whole conspiracy.
Talk about a power move.
The podcasters were losing it at this point. Like, they couldn't believe what they were seeing.
I bet. I mean, can you imagine the chaos?
Total pandemonium.
The government thought they could control everything from a distance.
But now they have to face the consequences of their actions head on.
It's like Leto and Damien are holding a mirror up to them, showing them the damage they've caused.
Yeah. And Leto, he doesn't mince words. He calls them out on their lies, their corruption, their disregard for the people of B13.
The podcaster said it was like all those themes we've been talking about. Social inequality, abuse of power.
It all comes to a head in this scene.
It's raw, it's powerful, it's a real indictment of the system.
And Damien, he's standing right there with Leto. He's seen the truth now. There's no going back.
It shows how much he's changed. He started out believing in the system, now he's defying it.
He's chosen a side.
The side of justice.
And the government, they have no choice but to listen. They can't silence Leto. They can't ignore the bomb. And they can't hide from the truth.
It's a victory for the people of the District B13.
They finally have a voice.
And the podcasters made a good point. This victory wouldn't have been possible without both Leto and Damien.
It took both their skills, Leto's street smarts, and Damien's understanding of the system to make this happen.
They needed each other.
But like we see in the film, winning this battle doesn't mean the war is over.
Right, the government agrees to dismantle the walls, reintegrate B13.
But there's still a long way to go.
It's a reminder that real change takes time. It's not just about tearing down physical barriers.
There's so much more to do. Rebuilding trust, addressing the root causes of inequality.
Giving a voice to the marginalized.
It's a complex process.
And I like how the film doesn't pretend to have all the answers.
It's not a fairy tale ending. All the problems aren't magically solved.
Exactly. Leto and Lola go back to B13, determined to rebuild their lives.
And Damien chooses to stay within the system, working to make it better.
It's a realistic approach. They've won a battle, but the fight continues.
And the podcasters really appreciated how the film leaves you with these big questions about social justice, responsibility, the role of government.
It makes you think, it challenges you.
And that's what good storytelling should do.
Entertain and make you think critically about the world.
Absolutely. So if anyone out there hasn't seen District B13, I'd highly recommend it.
It's action-packed, thought-provoking.
And visually stunning.
It's a film that'll stay with you.
Well said. And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into District B13.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We hope you enjoyed exploring this film with us.
And we hope it sparks some conversations, some reflections on your own role in creating a more just world.
Stay curious, stay engaged, and keep diving deep.